much, Alex, for introduction, and hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As just mentioned, I'm going to talk about my teaching experiences during the pandemic. I'm sure the past year was a very unique year for all of us teachers and also for our students. And I thought it's worth it to just look at my experiences from a critical perspective and see how my teaching experiences are similar and different than my teaching experiences before the pandemic. That's why I did this small research study, which I'm going to share with you. And if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to share with me at the end of the presentation. I'm going to share my screen because I have created a PowerPoint, which I'm going to share with you now. So very quickly, this is the outline of the presentation. I'm going to present background information and very brief literature on the topic, followed by the study, and then I will conclude and we will open the floor for questions and answers. So as I said, the past year or so has been very unique for everyone. People from different walks of life have very different experiences during the pandemic. And in this presentation, particularly, I want to focus on post-secondary students and how their experiences are different. And then later on, I will move on to teachers and instructors' experiences. So a study which was conducted on the 1st of May 2020 in Canada showed that the COVID pandemic has impacted students' employment plans. Many participants lost their jobs or saw their job prospects reduced. These changes have caused financial stress for students, obviously, because they were worried about their future employment. At the same time, these changes impacted their education and educational plans, mainly because classes were closed. So the physical closure of educational institutions across the country was a huge deal for many. And a study shows that academic disruption varied by the area of study and highest for students who studied services, trades, and healthcare. On the other hand, almost all participants in that study had some or all of their courses offered online. Only a very small portion, about 6% of the participants, had none of the courses offered online, or were not taking courses due to working on their dissertation, work placement, or other reasons. So what this information shows us and what this data imply is that the popularity, they all point to the popularity of online education as an alternative for traditional face-to-face education during the disease outbreak. But I should tell you something. As you know, online education is not a new phenomenon, right? Online education existed even before the pandemic, and lots of studies have been conducted on online education before the pandemic. And I'm going to share with you the results of some of those studies on online education in general. So, for example, Babaee suggests that in online classes, faculty use discussion activities for students to exchange their understanding based on their reading. And Lee and colleagues stated that to ensure that the students concentrate on online activities, faculty should break down the content of the in-class teaching into different topics. In other words, on the basis of ensuring a clear knowledge structure in the curriculum, faculty divide the teaching content into several chunks, with teaching approximately 20 to 25 minutes. So online learning seems to be a very reasonable replacement for face-to-face instruction. Students' education is not disrupted. The students and instructors can continue having classes while observing social distancing, which has been reinforced by health officials across the country. Also, students and instructors save commuting time. Students learn at their own pace in asynchronous classes, which can reduce their stress level and improve their educational performance. So these are some positive sides and advantages of online education during the pandemic. Well, of course, there are online education during the pandemic comes with challenges and issues, right? So despite the challenges, despite the opportunities that I just mentioned, students who lack appropriate tools, such as broadband internet, a laptop, and other required educational devices, have no suitable home environment for remote learning and learn better in face-to-face classes, can find online education quite challenging. Also, some courses heavily depend on the students' hands-on experiences with materials and physical models. And to give you an example, for example, design courses, like interior design courses, for example, in which students need to design drafts or they need to draw floor plans. This needs hands-on activities, and this needs physically dealing with materials. And also these need access to school facilities to work in a safe environment. The ongoing pandemic has deprived students of such an opportunity and environment. So the question for us to think about is how online teaching could compensate for these experiences. So when I was looking at research that has been conducted on online education, and also the research that has been conducted on education and learning during the pandemic, I noticed a few very good points. I noticed the contribution of these studies to the literature. So these studies that I shared with you and other similar studies bring to light significant educational issues which could inform teaching and learning during the pandemic. The need for, but at the same time, the need for investigating the successes and challenges of online education during the pandemic is felt more than ever. So it's not just enough to look at the students' issues and to just give teachers tips on facilitating learning in online classes for students. We need to really look at teachers' teaching experiences, their successes and challenges in particular courses, in particular programs during the pandemic, and come up with suggestions and recommendations for teachers in order to be more successful in teaching online courses during the pandemic. And that is the reason why this study was conducted. So this study is a qualitative single case study, and I collected data by reflecting on my teaching experiences during winter and spring 2021 through collecting reflective field notes taken after each session, teaching and also reviewing and analyzing teaching and assessment materials, and also my own narratives. The emerging themes were compared and analyzed in light of the constructivist learning theory, which has always informed my own teaching practices. So, applied to educational context, the theory that I'm talking about today, constructivist theory, requires that teachers create opportunities for students so that they would discover new concepts and make meaning through performing tasks and undertaking hands-on activities primarily in groups. So in this theory, the importance of group work and pair work is highly emphasized. The importance of self-discovery and doing hands-on projects to learn is highly emphasized. Teachers also encourage students to connect new lessons to old ones and past experiences and apply new knowledge to real-world situations. So in other words, application of new lessons to real-world situations, asking the students to provide real-life examples to explain the lessons. These are highly emphasized in the constructivist approach to learning. Other teaching practices I want to share with you include employing active techniques such as problem solving, reflecting on the students' learning, and explaining how their understanding is changing. So what did I do to achieve this end during the pandemic? So obviously, the first thing that we did as part of Yorkville University's plan was using Zoom to deliver courses remotely. So I use Zoom to give lectures and assign group learning activities such as problem solving, critical reflection on lessons, and all the activities that have been highlighted in the constructivist learning theory. I also clarified classroom policies for students in the first session, and interestingly, these policies a little bit differed from the policies that I used to follow before the pandemic, and I will explain this in more details later. So I explained these class policies in the first session and asked students feedback on their learning experiences throughout the term to make sure everyone is following, everyone is comfortable. If there are any issues, I ask students to let me know so I could try resolving them. I gave lectures in installment with short breaks in between to facilitate learning for the class, which had a very positive impact on the students' learning. Online teaching provided me with new teaching experiences and new teaching opportunities. The students were moved to the breakout room to discuss topics and complete group activities. They were also given time to research a topic on the internet because they all had access to the internet, right? So I just used this opportunity to have them do small research projects in class and also outside class and share their findings with their classmates. These activities made learning fun and enhanced the participation of students who felt uncomfortable to participate in larger groups or in a physical classroom. Speaking of opportunities, online education, online teaching presented challenges, right? As well as opportunities. And now I would like to talk about some of these challenges that I have been experiencing, or I experienced during the time I was collecting data for this research. First and foremost, internet disruption, right? So internet disruption affected teaching and learning for the instructor and the students. For myself, internet disruption was not a very frequent challenge. I mean, it happened to me only a few times, but anyways, once it happened, I just wanted to do my best to move things back to normal in order to continue lecturing and in order to avoid class time from being kind of wasted, right? Also, students' lack of private study space, this was a challenge that they faced. And in this presentation, I don't want to focus on the students' challenges, which is a very important topic and could be dealt with in a different research project. I want to just focus on my own challenges, but sometimes the students, the challenges that the students were facing impacted my own performance. So for example, a student's lack of a private study space would cause background noise to distract the instructor from lecturing, and I would have to pause to ask the students to mute their mic. Additionally, given live online education was a new experience for some students, they had to be trained to act and dress professionally in front of the camera. And I explained all of this in the class policies document that I created and I shared with the students at the beginning of the term, but some students needed to be constantly reminded of etiquette or like professional kind of like mannerism in an online class. Some students would chat with their roommates, were at work or on the street during the lecture. So when I asked them to turn on the camera, I saw them walking on the street, or I saw them doing work, and they were at work. Consequently, they were distracted and unable to participate in class activities. Finally, completing group activities outside class became challenging for students located in different time zones with different availabilities. Consequently, some students missed the group assignments because they had been unable to find a mutual free block with their partners in order to complete the task. To conclude the presentation, teaching online live classes offered challenges and opportunities to me as the instructor. Despite facing the technical and classroom management challenges which impacted my teaching and assessment, I was able to use available tools such as Zoom and the breakout rooms and employ innovative teaching techniques such as assigning online research activities in order to facilitate learning for my students. Compared to face-to-face classes, I gave more breaks and broke the lessons into small chunks. And this has actually been strongly suggested in the literature on online education. And as I said, Lee and colleagues' research highlights the positive impact of breaking a lesson into smaller chunks with in-between breaks to a student on student learning. And my research found the same results. Babaee states that compared with traditional in-class lectures, faculty have less control over online teaching, and students are more likely to skip the class. Therefore, the progress of online teaching and its learning effectiveness largely depends on a student's high-level active learning outside class. To this end, faculty should use various methods to moderately modify students' homework and reading requirements in order to strengthen students' active learning outside of class. This is a very important point, and to achieve this goal, my students were assigned pair and group work, as I mentioned, outside class, and an online learning community was created so that the students could support each other. And then I learned from the students that creating that online learning community was really fundamental in supporting the students outside class emotionally and also academically. This facilitated collaboration among the students and saved the class time when completing a pair or group work, when completing a pair or group assignment required time. Also, the students who had missed the session were able to complete their pair or group work outside the class. Babaee suggests that the faculty use discussion activities for students to exchange their understanding based on their reading in online classes. While implementing this idea can evaluate the students' learning, I would argue that the students need to be given opportunities to critically reflect on lessons, apply them to real-life context, and propose fresh ideas, as highlighted in the constructivist learning theory. So the point is that students should not just be asked to demonstrate their understanding of the lessons, which Babaee suggests. They should also be given opportunities to critically reflect on what they have learned, and so the teacher can see if students are able to apply what they have learned to real life situations, analyze a real case, or give appropriate and real life examples to demonstrate their understanding. To this end, I had the students answer comprehension questions and also critical thinking questions in the breakout room, and played short clips in class. Some challenges which I faced in class have already been reported in previous research that I briefly reviewed at the beginning of the presentation. So these challenges include internal distraction, students' lack of private study space, background noise, which would distract the instructor from lecturing, and also students' lack of computer literacy skills. But my study identified a brand new challenge, which was students' netiquette. So this included chatting with roommates with a microphone on during the lecture and attending class while at work or on the street. And I'm not here to blame students for this, because I do know that online education, and especially like taking synchronous courses via Zoom, was a very new experience for many students. And these students had no idea how to properly behave in an online class. That's why I created class policies. At the beginning of the term, I shared them with the class, and I just highlighted the importance of proper mannerism during online classes. But as I mentioned, these policies had to be reinforced over and over again. So this would distract the students, classmates, and instructor, and the instructor pause the lecture in order to ask the students to turn their mic off and move to a quiet place to focus on the lecture. So my recommendations.
Naghmeh, you have less than 1 minute left.
Sure, this is the last one. My recommendations to teach live synchronous classes is that instructors could create class rules which explain assignment submission, late submission policies, communication and email etiquette, and other expectations. And they need to share these with them right at the beginning of the term. Given technical issues such as power and internet outage can disrupt the delivery of online live classes, instructors should place instructional materials on the learning management system just as a backup. And instructors who use technological tools such as Zoom in live online classes should teach students how to use them, right? Without making the assumption that the students already know how to use these devices. The students with limited computer literacy skills may need additional support in order to use the learning management system and other technological devices. So it's always a good idea for instructors to go over these and to provide students with additional support in order to make sure that the students are ready and equipped in order to take online live synchronous classes. These are the references that are used in this research, and thank you so much for your patience and your attention. If there is any questions, please go ahead.